Welcome to the Cornerstone Church podcast, and thanks for joining us again for another episode. If you browse our website, you'll find plenty of other resources, including more podcasts and sermons that have been preached in the church. In this episode, we were joined by Liz Davies, who is a former England footballer and a Christian. She was interviewed by Anne Woodcock at our Cornerstone Women's Breakfast. We hope you find the episode encouraging and insightful and enjoy listening.
Well, we're very grateful that you've agreed to come. I think it was Tom who set this up, Tom Sweetman, one of our pastors, who heard you at Revive, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I did my testimony for Revive.
Yes.
And somehow through the grapevine, someone found out I played football and mentioned it on the stage without ever telling me they were going to. So I was kind of put on the spot and made a joke about it in an embarrassed way, but it was quite fun.
Oh, well, we're not going to put you on the spot. So this should be better.
I am aware this is about football, so that's fine.
Yeah, so have we got some football fans here? Women's football fans? Yeah? Some hands? Yeah, I thought this corner probably. We would have. Suzanne, surely you're a women's football fan, aren't you? Yeah. Oh, you did, right. Sorry. I didn't see. So, yeah, we're very grateful that you've come, and we're just going to spend the next 25 to 30 minutes just letting you chat, really. So I'm just here to enable that, I'm just going to ask a few questions. Liz is going to talk. She's brought a few bits and pieces for you to see. And then perhaps you'd be happy to hang around for a few minutes afterwards if people would like to come and ask other questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Okay, right. So to start off with then, please can you briefly outline who you are, where you are in life at present?
Sure. So I'm Liz Davies. I am married. I have a husband. We have a daughter who's nearly 1, Erin. She's a blessing, absolute blessing. I'm currently, I just resigned from work, so I was an investment banker. Some of us are nice. But I'm going to stay home with Erin and be mum. I played football just before getting pregnant for fun, but I was a professional football before that. So that's where I am now. I'm stay-at-home mum of Erin, wife, and a Christian. Right. Okay. So those are the two things that we're really going to find out about this morning: the football, and then the fact that you're a follower of Jesus. Okay, so could you tell us how you got into football and then what happened? Yeah, so I was the 5th granddaughter of my grandfather who played for Man United when he was young, but he did his knee, and back then there wasn't surgery to repair ligaments. So he was waiting for a grandson that never came, and I became the grandson playing. I was playing football with him in the back garden from when I could walk. And so I played with all the boys constantly throughout school, and then I played for the county boys team, and then I hit a late age at 11 where you can't play with the boys anymore, which is still the case actually in most places. Only now there's more girls teams around, so at the time there was very limited girls football, but I was lucky enough to be scouted to play for Southampton, so I went down to Southampton and played in their Centre of Excellence, and did that from the age of 10 through 15, when Southampton's men's team got relegated from the Premier League. So the funding was all linked. So the men's team funded our Centre of Excellence. So as soon as they got relegated, that was all cut, no team, that was it, gone. So I went and played for Arsenal, which was incredible. I went to their academy, so I moved out home at 16, played for the Arsenal Academy, played for England under 17s at the time. Oh, I've got a little photo of that, you can see that. I tried to print it out and blow it up for you, so it's a bit fuzzy. But this is me, age 15, for my first cap. And I, started playing for the first team at Arsenal there. And I've just loved it my entire life. It's been what I've always wanted to do.
At 18, I went out to play in America. So if you've seen Bend It Like Beckham, something a bit like that, but less dramatic. I got a scholarship, so very, very lucky to have no student loans, none of that. They just paid for everything. And in a way, that was when I was paid the most, because my scholarship to Columbia University was worth $60,000 a year, which is a phenomenal amount. So very, very lucky and privileged to have an amazing education through football, something I never expected. And then through that, I did the university degree, played football out there, did a year playing proper football, like professional football out in America. But it was just not something you could live off of. All my colleagues or teammates there had second jobs, third jobs, parents' fundings, things like this. It wasn't a life I could do. As much as I love football, it just wasn't worth it. So that's when I became an investment banker through people I'd met at university, through that sort of network of people. So that's how I ended up in football. Bit of a story of how I went. But it's quite interesting how the funding is linked. So it's the same in America, is they have a responsibility in the universities to give as much funding to women's sports as men's. And that's why they'd pay for me to go, because they want to pay for the American football players to go. And so because the funding is linked, we were privileged to link off of that. But that was obviously a negative when I was at Southampton. Premier League relegation meant that there was no team. So there's a bit of linkage there between the men's and women's football that I think is fundamental to how things are at the moment.
So what was the high point of your football career then, would you say?
So when I was playing at Arsenal, I got to be part of the 2008 team. We won the Premier League, FA Cup, National League, which is Challenge. So it's the previous FA Cup winners versus the Premier League winners, or something like that. Won that one anyway. And then the UEFA Cup. So at the time, there was all in the same year.
Wow.
There was no Champions League for women at the time, so the UEFA Cup was the women's equivalent. And I was playing with some of the best players in the world at the time. So there was Kelly Smith, Rachel Yankee, Faye White, played with a lot, and it's just incredible. The players I was playing with were, they're the players that every kid looked up to, and I was 18 years old. So I was that up-and-coming youngster playing with these superstars week in, week out. And I only played for 5 minutes in the finals, and I only played for but I was part of it, and that was definitely the highlight. I'd say that. Or maybe, I think another one, there's probably two, that one, but then there's something about when I played for England for the first time and hearing the national anthem play. I think that, for some reason, the music, just like that was one of those moments where I was just like, wow, this is an experience that not many people get. And that was, those two, I think.
And you bought a few bits and pieces.
So,
tell us about.
So as I said, in that year, which was an incredible year, we won the FA Cup. If I can open it. There we go. So this is an FA Cup winners' medal. This is a Premier League winners' medal, which until last week or the week before or something were in my loft, which maybe I should not. I may keep them out of the loft. I think they're worthy of a place with the shelf. But again, it's an interesting one because now, with women's football being bigger, they get the same prize as the men's in terms of medal. There's not even a ribbon. We didn't get the medals around our necks. It was, here's a box with a medal in. They're like the size of a 50p piece. The men's would have been massive. But it was still such an experience. Like, they put the little stage on the pitch and all of the streamers coming out, the champagne. I wasn't even old enough for it yet. No one knew. So that was quite fun. So, I mean, I can hand them around if people want to have a look. I didn't clean them, probably should have done that. So, sorry for all the dust. It's from my loft. I bought one of my shirts. I used to be this small. I then had a baby. That happens. I think this is my favourite shirt. I bought this one. So this was actually the year before 2008 when we won all of the things. So this was when the team was still that those players, the same thing, but I was probably I was playing half in the reserves and half in the first team. So this was the year I first started playing for the first team. So this is when I felt like I became a footballer, because I was playing then at Elite Sports. So this is my first team jersey. It had my name on it. So this is my favourite shirt for that reason. So, yeah. And then the picture of me playing, because sometimes I forget that I've done it. So yeah, there's my little picture, my shirt.
And so you decided to retire. Is that just getting older or injury?
So I played. I retired professionally first, and I just played for fun, and that was because the economics of it. You couldn't really live.
No.
It was unaffordable. And so went and got a proper job and played for fun. But then I stopped. I got pregnant with my daughter, so I played almost right up till then. Lockdown, I think, actually stopped the play. I played a couple of times, but when I got pregnant, that's when I really stopped purposefully.
Yeah.
I thought, it doesn't make sense. And in theory, in my mind, I was going to go back and play, but actually, with what energy? I'm 33 now. Getting back into it. Well, I mean, I'm seeing some faces of that still young, but for football terms, for women, it's not. I think the average woman probably stops around 30, 31.
Yeah.
Because by that point, these little youngsters whizzing around and just they take over,
and
that's fine.
Know that a body is a thing that can be a problem.
Exactly, and also it's in the amount of times, the amount I've done. I say done to my body. That sounds wrong. Like my knees, my hips. They're actually probably that of 50-year-olds now. It's in the amount of football I played. It was insane. I think I was with the England group, we did weightlifting from the age of 15 to get the muscle strength. I trained a couple hours every day for so long that's I don't think it's necessarily healthy for the body. So I think body's a bit worn. It was worth it, I think.
So since your retirement, you've had this other massive change in your life. So could you tell us about that and how it came about?
Sure, yeah. So it came about, I had my daughter and went to a baby group, Boppers, that's run by CCB. So Christchurch Balham is another church within the commission group.
Yeah, so that's the network we belong to at this church. Yeah.
There you go. And so I went to a baby group there, made some friends, and learnt about Jesus through the kiddie stories first. I think it took about 5 or 6 times of being told I was welcome to come to church to believe I was welcome to come to church. And I was welcome. And that's where I really sort of asked some of the questions that I think I kind of had in my mind all the time. Is there something bigger? What's bigger? What is there? And what does it all mean? I think certainly having a daughter, having a child, is something so massive and so incredible that you sort of, I think it doesn't take much then to realise that there must be something bigger than just us. And I had we have a great minister and assistant minister who really talked me through who Jesus was, what it was. I asked the bigger questions that I had in my heart. I came to know the love of Jesus, and it's been an incredible change. I've since found out that some of my friends from school who have been Christians their whole lives have been praying for me since I was a primary school child. So those prayers were answered, and it's really lovely to see that actually it comes full circle. So now I go to the baby group early and set up, and we pray beforehand, and then I realise again, people were praying for me, even though they didn't know me. They were praying that I came. They were praying that I came to know Jesus. And I did my testimony at Revive, and after that, lots of people were coming up to me and asking me about my testimony. And I asked them, and one person said to me, my testimony is really boring. I was like, what do you mean really boring? She's like, oh no, some of my first memories, I was probably around 5. I just remember knowing I believed in the truth. I believed Jesus to be the truth. And I was just like, that's not boring at all. That's exactly what I want for my daughter. And I think that actual moment cemented in me that, no, I have faith. I know the truth. The truth has been there this whole time. And I want my daughter to know that from day one. That's...
So this was from a background where you never really went to church?
No, I'd never been to church with my family. I'd say actually some of my family are quite opinionated against Christians. I don't think they understand. I think I've had to have some conversations with them, and they've started to see maybe a bit more about what it really means to follow Jesus. I had been to church with my friend in the States out of respect. I'd been to her family's house at Thanksgiving. They were going on a Sunday. I went on a Sunday. It's more like out of respect for them. But my ears weren't open. I wasn't listening.
What did you think about church? Was it just something you never thought about, or
it's something I never thought about at all. Like, as in, I'd never asked the question, "Do I have a faith?" I'd say my family, as a whole, thought you'd have to be unintelligent to believe in something that doesn't make sense. That's not scientific. It's not, I guess, the common secular attitude of the time, right? But actually, I think I'd seen. When I went out to the States at university, I'd seen Christians who were remarkably intelligent. I'd seen Christians who had, I'd say, a peace, or there was something that I wanted to be like them. Like I would say that some of my best friends that I've had, actually, the people I'm still in touch with from primary school were the Christian friends that I had. The person who I'm still in touch with from university is coming over to my baptism next weekend from Germany. So, like, as in, I think there's something to be said for relationships, for how they lived their life. They seemed more content. They seemed more everything, I say. I don't know. It's hard to put something on it, but, like, they were what I wanted to be like. And if I look at how I grew up without that, I wouldn't say I wanted to be like my parents in that regard.
Okay. I just mentioned your baptism next week, so Can you just tell us how you arrived at that?
So I think that was from Revive, having had done my testimony, and my minister came up to me and he's like, "Well, now you've done your testimony." He's like, "Were you ever baptised?" I was like, "No, no." I was like, "That's why I kind of sit at the back during communion. I don't feel like I should be up there. I'm not baptised yet." And so we had a discussion. And I think that's where I ironed out some of maybe the last bigger questions of, like, well, I'm just trying to think what is the most significant, I say, was really I guess it's quite hard to say, like, I've got family members who have passed who weren't Christian. Would they be in heaven? And also, there are people I don't want to be there. And I know that's a sin in my heart, but, like, the hardest part of becoming a Christian was actually forgiveness and repentance. And so I had to forgive those people who I don't want in heaven. I don't want to say it like that, that's not the case, but, in my heart there's that sin, and forgiving those people is hard. So, like, I think that's what it took. So after Revive, my minister coming and saying, "You're not baptised. You've done in front of thousands of people, you've just given your testimony. You believe what's stopping you." And it was that repentance, forgiveness, and coming to say that actually I want everyone to be saved. I think that was the hardest thing for me.
Not everybody here might know what baptism is, so can you just explain what it might involve?
So I'm going to be dunked. My daughter is not going to be dunked. She's also getting baptised at the same time as me. They'll just put some water on her head because I don't want her to drown. I'm going to be dunked, and it's just a display of going down into the water, coming back out. It's Jesus died and rose for us. I think that's how I see it. It's a visual of Jesus having gone to the cross and come back and cleaning us of our sins, and I just sort of, that's how I feel and see it.
Die to our old life and rise up to the new life that He's given us.
And turn towards God. Yeah. And I think that's
the picture.
That's the picture that I see, and that's how I feel, and I'm really excited for it. And it's been a really incredible change in my life.
I hope it will be a really great occasion.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now, one thing about becoming a follower of Jesus that people here who've had this change in their life will know is that it really does change your view of everything in your life. And one of the things that you've reflected on is football.
Yeah.
So as a Christian, you kind of now view football a little differently. Is that right?
Yeah. So Christianity is a religion, and Jesus is the key part of that. But I guess instead of having a Jesus, instead of having Christianity, I worshipped football. And I don't say that lightly. Football became sort of an idol. But when everything is so linked to football, when you lose a game, when you retire, when you have any kind of injury or anything like that, then what, right? You've got this emptiness. My whole identity was in football. All I was a footballer. again, the same thing. If your self-worth is linked to something that you can win and lose at, you can be successful or not. And I'm very lucky to have been successful, but that was still quite a roller coaster. So looking back and reflecting on that, I could see how being a Christian would have changed that entire experience for me. You still can get the enjoyment out of a win. You're going to be disappointed for a loss. You get the emotions, but without the tie to the extremity of that being everything. And I think what's quite interesting is in the England team at the time, the sort of mantra was pride, passion, belief. Now you think of pride, well, again, I'm looking at the blessing I had of my ability for football now. I'm not thinking I was this amazing superstar. I was a person, I was a child of God, just like everybody else in the room. I happen to have been blessed with this talent. How lucky I was to have that, but it's a blessing. It's not from me. My strength came from Christ. And I think that's a big reflection that you wouldn't see within the footballing community. Because like I said, if the mantra is pride, passion, belief, the first thing of that is pride, which isn't something that you really see within Christian groups. I think for me, like that's one thing that's gone is I don't tie my success to who I am anymore. And that's quite amazing. Then there's passion, which again, like too much was in football. Passion, I guess I had to look up the word passion because there's some parts of it that I'm not confused as to why aren't necessarily good. Like it required dedication. There's nothing bad about dedication that goes into passion, but at the same time, so does the extreme emotions. And I just think that that's something that within football was unsettling. I did enjoy it. I had a great time, but it was so extreme. It was a roller coaster that I don't think it was healthy. Actually, it became an obsession. And I think that's something that I look back and think it wouldn't be the same. And then belief. I mean, again, that's, I think, in the England setups referring to belief in the team, belief in the structure. But I think now I can look at the world and say there's something so much bigger than that. So now when I look back at some of the harder things like retiring, being injured, I can see, do you know what, the sun came up that day. I was alive to be retired. Like I had that day of life that got given to me by God, and I got to live it. Okay, there wasn't football in that day, I've retired, but there's so many great things in that day. So I think for me, looking back, I could say, I can see it all as a blessing and an incredible journey that I was taken on. Yeah, by God, but like I could say that a lot of my self-worth is less linked to that now. I'm a child of God first and foremostly. My whole identity has changed. And I think if I'd identified like that as a footballer, I would have taken more joy, I would have spread more joy, I would have been a better person, and I think I would have seen the bigger picture more.
Do you think your teammates would believe that you could have been the sort of the top player if you were a Christian, and if you told them what you've just told us? Do you think they would be quite sceptical that you would be able to hit those heights?
So, yes, to some of the UK English players. In America, so one of the friend from university that's coming over from Germany for my baptism is a Christian. Mm-hmm. She has been her whole life. She's a follower of Jesus, and she is exactly that. And she's one of the people that I would like to be like. Mm-hmm. I would like to. I see her. She's so much more godly than I am, and so it's proof in the pudding. She was that good. She showed me every day, before I even realised I was seeing it, that being a Christian didn't mean that you couldn't do it. I was probably that person, right? I would have been the skeptic. So actually, do I think so? Yes, because it happened to me. Like, I had that example that I wish I was in my friend Marissa. And she was a successful player. She got the same scholarship that I got. She did everything. She was in America, so she didn't do the English side, but she did the American equivalent. And her whole life she's been a follower of Jesus. So
she wasn't compromising, putting Jesus first and those things being the most important. Exactly. But that didn't stop her aiming high. I mean,
so many successful Christians. Being a Christian does not mean you can't be successful in any walk of life. And I think, my friend Marissa, but then there's also, I think, Stephen Edwards, the long jumper. There's lots of different athletes who are Christian. And ultimately, you still have the same, it's a viewpoint. It's not like I could still have played to the level I had, but not felt drastically like my self-worth was depleted because we lost one game, and not felt like I was this incredible person better than anybody else when we won. Because I've got this consistency that, I identify first as a child of God. And I think that's the biggest difference. So I don't think in any way it would have impacted how successful I was, but I think it would have changed how I felt about it. And I think that's why it changes everything, because it's the way you feel about things that changes, not what necessarily happens. But also, then I wish I could have been Marissa for other people, and so I hope to do that in the future. Coming here, I'd hope that you'll walk away with something, and come one step closer to Jesus, even if you're already a follower. And I wish I could have done that for my teammates the same way Marissa did do that for me. Because I do think seeing those examples changed my mind from when I was with my family to, no, I know you don't have to be unintelligent. I know you don't have to be unsuccessful. I know you don't have to be any of those things to be a Christian, because I've seen it. It disproved that theory and made me reevaluate that. And then when I was at that baby group with my church, my ears were already open, but my ears were open because of those people. They were closed by my family, open by those great examples, the example that I hope to be to other people now. And then when they were open, with the prayers that went alongside, by God's grace, I found Jesus.
So it's wonderful. It's a wonderful story, and you've explained it very clearly.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's probably enough questions from me. Are you happy if people ask questions?
Please do.
Okay, does anybody like to ask Liz a question? Yeah, Grace? Okay, I'll just repeat the question. So it's about being a Christian in investment banking. Yeah, another area that people might think
Skeptical.
not terribly compatible with being a Christian.
So firstly, I'd say that I was on maternity leave already when I became a Christian. However, I guess I have some friends who are in similar situations to that. And from their experience, I would say that I think one of them has said that oftentimes you expect people to be more contentious to your view than they are. So people might be quiet, but that's not because they've got an extreme opposite end view. And people are more inclined to agree to disagree, or just be comfortable that they have no faith while you do, than you might think. And so I would say, firstly, the job in itself, making rich people richer sometimes. Is it a gift to society? Well, no, not necessarily, but it's part of society, and you play a part in your family, your society, in your church. Are you giving some of that back? Is your family giving some of that back? I think if you look at the Bible, some of Jesus' stories about, the different people in society, the tax collectors, the various people, it wasn't that he was saying tax collectors have to be bad, right? He was saying, right, how are you going to be good? So I think it's maybe looking at it the other way of, I am a Christian, I am an investment banker, or I am in corporate. How do I do that in a way that serves God? Can I talk to my colleagues? Am I here being scared about it because I think they'll have the contentious opposite view? And so I've actually had that conversation with a friend who's at one of the big four consultancy firms, and she said that. So she sort of said there might be things that society thinks differently to Christians on, and that's okay, as long as you come from a point, she sort of said, often I come from a point, as long as you come from that point of love first, it's hard to go against love. If you go to somebody and you're having a conversation and you say, oh yeah, I was at church on a Sunday, they're never going to be like, why? Or if they do, great, I can talk to you. Do you see? So I think that's from her experience, not mine. That's how I would see it. I don't know if that helps.
Rudy's question is whether women's football can ever become like women's tennis, pretty much on the same level as men's?
Firstly, I really like the way you phrased that question. It's a great question. Because most people would say, will it ever become like men's football? And actually what I think's happened is men's football's gone way off the limits. I think men's football needs to be knocked down a couple of levels, and women's football needs to come up to meet that. Because I don't think it's okay that men think they're the be-all and end-all, the way they end up. I mean, it shows by if you look at how they live their lives, how they treat the women in their lives, how they treat other people, they're not all, or many of them aren't, what you would consider upstanding members of society. Whereas if you look at men's tennis, which it's much less bad, it's better. I do think it needs to be knocked down a couple of levels, the amount of money, the amount of corruption. I mean, we were just saying how Qatar's got the World Cup. Why is that? It's probably, I mean, just look at the death toll of the builders. I mean, it's just not okay. So I think men's football needs to come down, but women's football, I think, it's got a way to come, and I think it will get there. I think the good thing about tennis is they're not competing. It's not like, do you watch men's tennis or women's tennis? They're done in the same event. You watch both, and they're slightly different sports. I think if you watch men's tennis, it's more power, more speed. They're different body types. If you watch women's tennis, there's more dainty shots. I mean, I'm not a tennis expert by any means, but it's a different game, but it's as enjoyable. And I think that's what equality is. It's not that women's football and men's football are going to be the same game, but it's that they're given the same worth. They're given the same, like, people do enjoy it more because they're releasing off their prejudice. And I think that's where we've got to get to. So I think men's football needs to be knocked down a couple of levels, and it's too big. It's ridiculous. It's no longer even family friendly. I wouldn't want to take my daughter to a men's game. That's not okay. I think it needs to come down, but I think women's has got a way to go, and I do think it can get there. I've got the hope that it will. I think that more and more people are starting to watch, and I think that's an exponential relationship. The more women's football starts to be watched, the more there's the conversations about it, the more people are like, maybe I'll go to one game. They might enjoy it, meet people, go to another game. They might create fantasy football around women's football, like all of those little betting things. I don't really get that, but that's fine. But I think it can come and meet in the middle, but I do think it's not, can women's football get to men's football? It's, can we find inequality without prejudice? And I think that does require men's to come down and women's to go up.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Can we just show our appreciation to Lucy? Thank you.
Thanks again for tuning in for another episode, and don't forget to check out our other episodes on the Everyday Cornerstone podcast, as well as other resources on our website. Hopefully you can find those and enjoy them.